welcome to another episode of Veterans View. And today we are in beautiful downtown Columbus at St. Luke Ministries. And we're here today in honor at a Heart of Serving lunch that's ran by the House of Heroes. And I have with me today the Executive Director, Ms. Woods.
That's right.
So, Ms. Wood, would you take a few moments and tell us something about yourself first before we talk about the House of Heroes?
Okay. Well, I've actually been part of House of Heroes since 2006. I started as a volunteer, showing up every day just to help out in the office, and then I was hired in 2007, and now I'm the director.
Yeah, that's great. Now, tell us something about House of Heroes that you've accomplished since you took over as director.
Oh, wow, that we've accomplished since I took over.
You accomplished so much.
Wow. Well, really, in the last 5 years, we've increased the number of veterans we've been able to assist each year. We used to assist anywhere from 35 to 45, but in the last 5 years, we've assisted 75, 90, and over 100 veterans last year. So we're very proud of the work that we do. The fact that we're able to assist much needed repairs for our veterans is just what our mission's all about.
And those repairs, I mean, that's a lot of work, and you have to have a lot of volunteers. So tell us some of the kind of repairs that you do for veterans when they seek your help.
Okay. Most of the repairs that we do are very minor. So there's painting and yard work. If we have skilled volunteers, we're able to do a few other things, such as maybe replace a handicapped toilet or handicapped fixtures, some minor plumbing, install a ceiling fan. Nothing too hard. It's something that everybody can do.
But it's something that's really needed.
Very much needed. Most of our veterans just can't do those simple things any longer. Like one of the veterans was talking about today, getting out and cleaning his yard. When you have a lot of yard and it's a lot of debris, an elderly or disabled veteran cannot do that, and that's where we step in.
Okay, and while we're talking about this, tell us your outspan, your reach as far as Columbus, Phoenix City, and Russell County goes.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that?
We're the Chattahoochee Valley chapter, so we have a 45-mile radius from here in Columbus. So we go to Seal, Alabama, Smith Station, up in Opelika, Harris County, Chattahoochee County. So we have a very large span.
So you're covering the whole valley.
That's right, covering the valley.
That's great. Well, Ms. Wood, we want to thank you for this, and we're going to talk to the owner or the founder of the House of Heroes.
Yes.
And we thank you for your service and all that you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
I was a military policeman. When I got out of the Army 3 years later, I joined up with the Oklahoma State Troopers. And then I moved to Georgia, 21 years as police.
My husband, Robert, he was 20 years in the Army. He was on the infantry. We meet in France. He was stationed there. He died 2005. I'm still missing him.
Military was a way of life for me. The first time I went to Vietnam, I went in 1966. Second tour in Vietnam was as a long-range recon patrol.
We had a duty loading the bombs on the B-29, and then we fused them on the flight. When we come back from that raid, we got hit by flak. I was scared beyond measure.
My husband, Hosea McClellan Whitstone, was drafted into the military. But then here come Vietnam. He was sent twice. He served his country well.
or see the flag being lowered or raised, I salute the flag, and I'm proud to be American.
I knew I was going to have trouble getting my wife in and out of the house, so I applied for a ramp to be built for her. Well, I don't know what I would have done without the help of the House of Heroes. When they built the ramp, it was godsend to me.
I think House of Heroes is a benefit to the service people who need their help.
Of the United States of America.
I thank God for not only the work, but I thank the people that came out with the House of Heroes, the volunteers.
I was just so glad to be introduced to House of Heroes.
I feel very good, I feel safe. The House of Heroes took a burden off my shoulder.
Them coming in here and doing the work that I can no longer do, in my eyes, they're the heroes.
Thank you, Jason, and thanks to each and every one of you for being here in the part and role that you play in the House of Heroes program. Without what happens here in the Chattahoochee Valley, we could not do things that we're doing in other parts of the country. As a quick update, we have done over 1,100 houses in this area, and it is spread to 18 states in the United States. So what began here is spreading across the United States, and we really are at a tipping point. And you're a part of that, and I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Susan and the staff who work here in our office and help us in many different ways. I want to thank those who have been a part of the staff in the past, as well as those who've been on our board, currently on our board, and also on the board through the years. And then especially thank volunteers and donors. Without your resources of time, energy, and help, we couldn't do what we need and want to do. So thank you for all of that on behalf of all the people around the country that are going to benefit. Members of Congress keep pushing me to have it start in their district, and there's only so many places you can go and make sure things get done well. And so having the Columbus Chattahoochee Valley chapter is crucial to us. Interestingly enough, we didn't plan it this way, but as it turns out, we wanted to celebrate the 20th anniversary of House of Heroes. On November the 18th, 1999, the House of Heroes idea was conceived. We are right at the 20-year mark on that. And it was a confluence of really 4 different forces that came together. One was my experience working in South Columbus and Oakland Park as a United Methodist minister there. I served a church called Asbury United Methodist, and I would go visiting in different members of homes of the different members of our church. What amazed me, and I think so many of us in our community don't ever realize this, but those are small houses, 3-bedroom, carport, maybe 1 bathroom, perhaps 2, but they're small houses, most of which in that area were built in the 1950s and 1960s. And as I visited in the houses, I began to see a lot of repair work that needed to be done. When they were young, these Army enlisted people took care of the house, but as they got older, they could not do the work as well. And it occurred to me that, we need to do something about this. You know what happens when you start saying, we need to do something about it? One house, I remember, a member of our church, Hank, he and his wife had been married 62 years. He had served in World War II, Korean War, and then in Vietnam. He had actually won the gold medal for the United States. But when it rained, he and his wife had to climb out of bed, put plastic over the bed because the roof leaked so bad, and then sleep on the floor. A decorated veteran and member of our armed forces. And I kept saying, as I went to house, people didn't have hot water. It's amazing the kind of conditions that exist in our community that we're oblivious to. So I said, something needs to be done. Somebody needs to do something about this. That's coming from one direction. I also recognize that almost every one of these veterans from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, they have something in common. They received a brown envelope in the mail one day, and in that brown envelope was what? From the Department of Defense. It is all of their medals. Silver stars, bronze stars, purple hearts came in a brown envelope with a form letter that wasn't even signed. Thank you for your service. That is all the country has done for all of those in that generation. From the beginning of Pearl Harbor to present day, 50 million Americans have put on a uniform for the United States. 50 million. More put on a uniform in Vietnam than in World War II. 17 million in World War II, 18 million Vietnam. So what they've done is they came back, those who were part of the occupying force in World War II, didn't come back to the parades and all the honors and recognition. They came back later on. If you served in Korea, it was not a Korean war, it was a Korean conflict. And they were told, just tell people that it's a conflict. So they came back to silence. And if you were in Vietnam, you didn't come back to cheers, but you came back to jeers. One person told me, said as we were honoring, said, it's been 32 years since I had anything on from my military experience. Because the last time I had something on, I got off the plane from Vietnam in San Francisco and was pelted with rotten eggs and tomatoes. That's the way our country said thank you to these who defended and prevented communism and dictators taking over the whole world. So I said, we need to honor these people who have served us so faithfully. Then I realized that over 50 million Americans have put on a public safety uniform. While there is overlap, that's nearly 100 million Americans who form that thin line between tyranny from afar and chaos from within. And again, they reach a point in life where they can't take care of the house, and there is nobody that steps up to the plate and does something about that. So I said, somebody ought to do something. You with me? All right, that's from one direction. Then, over here on this side, I realized that we have not had or done anything to honor that generation and do something for them and recognize them. And so we needed to do something where at the end of the day, we not only help them, but honor them. A good example was this. I was telling somebody, I was helping with the fundraising for the World War II Memorial. How many of you been to see the World War II Memorial? Real important that you go and stand in the well, as we call it, and look around at all the people that paid a sacrifice for the freedom you and I have. But I was raising some funds, helping raise funds for the World War II Memorial. It's the easiest $100 million I've ever raised. Of course, Bob Dole was chair of the committee, and that helps out a great deal. So a lot of us were involved in that. But I would talk to the people who had been in World War II, whom we were honoring, and they would say to me, preacher, too little, too late. They would then point to their backyard or their house and said, "This is my world now. And I can't even keep it up. I can't fix things." And so I said, we need to bring the memorial to the place and honor the people for whom we are doing all of this. We need to do that. Somebody ought to do that. Okay? Who's the somebody? The clock is going around. The compass is coming around. And then I realized that there is a generation, and no, there are almost 4 generations that have no clue at the price that's been paid for the freedoms that you and I enjoy in the nation in which we live. There are many who think the wars we conduct now are from afar behind a console shooting missiles, when in reality, the World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, the casualty, the total was enormous and the cost so heavy. Many of you in this room will remember in 1968, when every week in this country, 2,000 coffins came back to the United States. 58,000 people gave their lives to stop the spread of communism. And many more were wounded. Somebody ought to say thank you to them, but also we need to introduce the current generations to those who have paid the heavy price for the freedoms that we enjoy. Somebody ought to do that. So 20 years ago, I was sitting in a leadership conference, 7:18 in the evening, when the somebody, God said, tapped on the shoulders and said, "The somebody is you." And that was the beginning, and that was the formation of the idea for the House of Heroes. Let's do something to help our heroes. Let's do something to honor our heroes. Let's do something to say thank you to them and their families for the freedoms we enjoy. And let's introduce other generations to the high cost of freedom, particularly teenagers who don't often realize what price has been paid for the freedoms they experience, and college students as well. And so House of Heroes was born, and as you have heard, it has grown from that. But the reason it's growing is because of this chapter and all of you who are involved. And the impact is enormous and significant on people and on young people as well. I never forget having one year, we were working on houses, and I had somebody one of our board members came to me and said, "Do you have anybody who is a Holocaust survivor?" Everybody knows what the Holocaust is. And he said, "The teacher from one of our schools teaches," and said, "the students cannot believe that there really was 6 million Jews killed in less than 7 years in Europe. It just can't happen. And more than that, how can people do what they said they did to them? Their image of a concentration camp was Guantanamo Bay. And they could not believe how persons could be treated like this. And so he said, "Do you have anybody?" And I said, "Well, actually, we did the research, found that we did have somebody who had survived the Holocaust. We were going to be working on her house." And the young people worked on the house, and at lunchtime, we took a break. And what I try to do is get the people to tell a little bit of their story to the people working on their house, so you get a sense of why you're doing what you're doing and for whom you're doing it. And Ms. Sinachek started to share her story. She was sitting in the chair in the, quote, living room of this small trailer. Her daughter was standing up. She had a son, but her son was killed in Vietnam. So only her daughter is there to take care of her. So her daughter is standing up by the kitchen, and she begins to tell her story. How many times do you think the daughter has heard the story? Never has heard the story. because they will tell it to their grandchildren, but they don't tell it to their children. Sometimes we don't ask. But anyway, she began to tell her story. She grew up in Europe, Poland, and was there when the Nazi army invaded Poland. They lived on a farm, and they were told that everything that's produced on the farm belongs to the Nazi government and would have to surrender it all. But they had family and friends that lived in town who were starving to death, and so at night, she and her brother would make trips into town, one night, one the other night, to take food, knowing full well what will happen if she's caught. If she's not executed on the spot, it did. Indeed, what happened occurred. She was captured one night, put on a cattle car. She was 13 at the time. Remember the age, 13 at the time. Put on a cattle car and shipped to one of the concentration camps in Germany. She was how old? She went there in 1939. For the next 6 years, she is telling this group this story. For the next 6 years, she is abused in every human possible way, from 13 to 19. And so many of the times, people that did it in the name of, quote, medicine with lab coats on. So that when she got out, and I'll tell the story of her getting out, but when she got out, what did she not want to see somebody in? Her daughter could not understand why she didn't want to be in a nursing home, why she didn't want to go to the hospital. She had never heard this story. She's standing there, tears coming down her face. She had no idea her mother had gone through that. When the Allies finally liberated, the United States soldiers came in, and one young soldier picked her. She was one of the last survivors to still be alive. They had not been given any food for 3 months. She was barely hanging on. A young soldier picked her up and took her out to the Red Cross tent. And she was delirious, and she was speaking in a language nobody in the tent could understand. What was her native language? Well, the young soldier that picked her up was the son of Polish immigrants, and his parents wanted him to learn Polish, the mother language. So he hears her speaking, and he hears what she's saying to describe what she has endured, and conveys that to the doctors and medical staff. And so he stays with her until she is conscious enough then to communicate with the medical staff. And then he returns to the war. Sometime later, he is injured. Mine goes off. He's severely injured and is taken, medevac, then all the way to England. In a hospital there, recovering. It's delirious. And he's speaking in a language that most everybody doesn't understand in the hospital, except this nurse understands him speaking. She said he's speaking Polish, and so she goes over and starts taking care of him, and she is the primary nurse that watches over him. Now, she's telling this story to these high school young people, and she says she's taking care of this soldier that had been injured on the battlefield, and discovers that this is the soldier that lifted her from a concentration camp and took her to health care and stayed with her till she was where the rest of the staff could take with her. Now, what does she do? She stays with him until he can recover. A few months later, he comes back to America. On the ship with him, side by side, is the nurse he had rescued from the concentration camp. She wanted to be where? In America. And she said, I'll never forget the moment when we arrived in New York at Ellis Island. He reached down and he picked me up in his arms for the second time. Walked me up the steps of the Statue of Liberty and welcomed me to the land of the free. the home of the brave. What we do in the House of Heroes is we help somebody that deserves it more than anybody else I know. We honor people that have never been honored, for whom we owe everything in this country. We heal broken relationships. You'd be surprised. The mending of broken relationships and the telling of the stories. And then we give tribute to those who deserve it and teach a new generation the cost of freedom. Indeed, they learn what it means to be in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. Understand that liberty comes with a price. Freedom is not free. It is won by generation after generation after generation. So thank you for what you are doing to some incredible people who lived among us, and doing for some people who live with us, to whom we handle the mantle of freedom to them. Thank you on behalf of the Congress of the United States and a grateful nation, and the people who have discovered what it is to be free and cherish it. Thank you. God bless you. God bless House of Heroes. And God bless America.
Now you know how House of Heroes began and why we love it so much, but why we love this man right here. You always make me cry. Why do you do this? So, on behalf of House of Heroes here in Chattahoochee Valley Chapter, we have a small gift for you. It says, "I'm a gift," right there on the outside of the box.
You're a gift to us too, Susan.
But we just thank you so much for your vision and what you've done for all of us, and we just love you.
Oh,
Thank
bless
you.
you. Thank you.
Let's all stand and we'll face this American flag. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you very much. God bless America. You guys have a safe trip back to work and home. Thank you so much.
We're here with Mr. Anthony, the founder of the House of Heroes today. And Mr. Anthony, could you tell us something about yourself first in your career, and then we'll talk about you founding the House of Heroes.
Well, thank you for this privilege and honor, and
Yes,
certainly for what you're doing in the community, what the station is doing. I was born here in Columbus, up in the north part of Columbus, on
Yes,
a
sir.
poultry and livestock farm. We had 50,000 chickens.
50,000.
So if you ask me, do I eat eggs today? The answer is only in something. Not, went to Jordan High School, and then went off to college, Christian college in Kentucky called Asbury College, and 1 year to the seminary, then came to Emory, finished my Master of Divinity. During that time I got married, and we started having a family of children, 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Came to start serving in South Georgia as a United Methodist minister. You know, they send you wherever they want you to go.
Yes, sir.
So I went to the big city of Poland, Georgia.
Poland.
You know where that is?
I've heard of it.
I didn't know where it was either. I thought they were sending me to Europe.
Yes, sir.
In Preston, then went to Valdosta. So Then I went back to get my Master of Business and got my went to Athens, got my MBA. Then came back, while I was there, I worked for Kentucky Fried Chicken, RJR Nabisco.
Great. So you've been a man of the state of Georgia, I should say.
Yeah.
But you know, when I went to school, I went to a little school up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, called Shelton State Community College, and I had to take a Christian course.
Okay.
Before you can graduate in Alabama, you have to take a.
Really?
So my instructor was a United Methodist pastor.
Oh, really? Do you remember his name at all?
I don't remember
right.
his name, but he was a good guy, and he gave me a B+. And he said to the class, he said, now, I had just retired from the Navy. He said, Mr. Davis got a B+. He could have got an A+, but he decided, because I was a pastor, that he didn't have to put all his commas and periods in the right place. So I learned my lesson then.
He didn't even let you slide by, did he?
Yeah, just because he a pastor, don't think he ain't looking to see whether the periods and question marks and commas was in the right place.
I love it.
So tell us.
Then I came to Columbus, and that's where I was working at the Pastoral Institute Bradley Center.
Okay, great.
And started the Business Resource Center, and we ultimately had about 150 companies under contract to do management training and development, employee assistance programs.
So that tells me that you are a good man of God and that you really love God's people.
Yes.
And
yes.
And that's including veterans and everybody. It just don't matter. It's just people, period.
And one of the things that prompted me, I was serving in Winton Methodist Church as an associate pastor there, working for a period of time. And in 1992, there was the incident with Rodney King, and we were meeting together in Columbus to say we got to do some things to address issues in our community so we don't have a problem here.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people, I was in one of the meetings one time, and one of the ministers that was in it said, you know, we've done a lot of talking and nobody's doing anything. So I said to my DS, I said, I'm willing to serve a church, but I want it to be in South Columbus. He said, why? I said, I'm gonna get on the other side of the Macon Road and try to make an impact on improving things in and for our community. Started getting involved.
Make a difference. Okay. Now, if you would, and we filmed the whole show and everything, but just something that really touched you about the House of Heroes starting this up.
Well, let me give you 4 words that I didn't get a chance to talk about in depth. I talked about it's a program that helps military and public safety. And when I first started it, people said, well, public safety, why do you want to help public safety? After 9/11, nobody's ever questioned that again.
Right.
Because of all that they do for us. The second thing it does is it honors them. And we do something by giving them a flag while they're still alive, as best we can.
Yes.
Now, sometimes we can't, but don't wait till they die.
Right.
Give them the flowers while they're alive. And so we want to honor them while they're, and to do something the country has never done for them, for people like you. I mean, you're a good example of it. You've never been in a big ceremony where they honored you. So you understood what I was saying.
Yes, sir.
Third thing is to help, to honor, and to heal. And you'll appreciate this. In some of these homes where they were coming back from Vietnam or Korea, where they've been through an awful lot, there was a lot of tension in those homes. We now know it as PTSD. We know the isolation that went on with it. Handled it a lot better, but in those days it didn't, and so there was a lot of tension in the family. So this gives a chance for the children, now grown up and adults with children of their own, to come back and remember and have the country say to them, thank you for the sacrifice you made on behalf of our country.
Yes, sir.
Not just your dad, but our mother, but so. And then the fourth thing we do, and I wanted to sort of come back to it if I'd had time, and that is to help connect people, help them appreciate each other. You notice the diversity of people working on houses?
Yes, sir.
That helps affirm who they are and not focus on the differences between us, but accentuate the positives.
Right, and it looks like our community.
Yeah, yeah. And it just happens naturally. We don't stage that, it just happened.
And you know, I wanted to say something because you said something earlier about the Vietnam veterans when they came back and how they threw eggs and tomatoes at them. And you know, I did a program a year ago. Actually, I did the first program here in the area where we, out in the National Cemetery, where we honored the Vietnam veterans.
Good deal.
And we did that. And I thought about, when I came back from the Gulf War, we didn't have a parade either, or a band.
Sure didn't.
They didn't celebrate us coming back when President Bush sent us over there. And we come back, and I thought about that. And when I retired from the service, I went and taught ROTC in Atlanta, Naval ROTC. And when those planes hit the towers,
yeah,
it was a difference in the country.
Oh,
people came together.
They did.
All of the hatred went away, and the focus was on us, America as a whole. And now that's gone. Do you see that?
Oh yeah, I do. And I think that part of we have to lay the blame at a lot of different people's feet, but I think the political environment has gotten to some so acrimonious, and it's dividing our nation rather than uniting us.
Right. And that's what I try to tell veterans when I hold my groups and stuff, is to not let the politics get into our organizations.
Yes.
We need to be bigger and better. But I want to thank you for taking the time to let me interview you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to get the interview.
And we look forward to seeing you and continually supporting you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.